Mock Draft Wednesday with special guest Matt English. Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And today's episode, we're going to go over the AFC NFC Championship game, some of the East-West Shrine game, as well as the Senior Bowl, and then dive right into a 2025 rookie mock draft for you all out there, help you configure the first and second rounds of your mock drafts and give you an idea of what to expect come May and your rookie drafts there. Matt, glad to have you back in the house. How are you doing?
Well, I'm glad to be back in the Birdhouse. Doing pretty good, man. Not too bad. I went through some snow here in Houston last week. Rare, but it was a lot of fun. So glad things are warming up because we are in that time of year where you and I start to get a little giddy because we get into the boring stuff of watching tape on some guys and coming to some evaluations on some rookies as we prepare for our rookie drafts. And then also, the Super Bowl's around the corner. So this is the pinnacle of the year, so to speak. So, yeah.
Yes, time. The Super Bowl is on its way. We've got, we're about 10 days away from the big game. Definitely not what you and I were rooting for sure. And that goes for about 99% of America. But we have what we have here. I mean, it happens in the Super Bowl. When I was a kid growing up, I didn't want to see the 49ers in the Super Bowl every year. But, man, they were a good team. They deserve to be there. I didn't love it when the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl at the beginning of the 90s all the time either. But, the best teams get there for a reason. And, Josh Allen, as much as I love him, he's still got plenty of opportunities to get to the big game. I mean, how long did it take Peyton Manning to win a Super Bowl, right? So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, they're good players. They'll get there one eventually.
Yeah. I understand that. And I know football's seen its share of dynasty runs, right? You mentioned the 49ers, the Cowboys. God knows everyone remembers the Patriots. Or you could just say Tom Brady, right? Because he went to Tampa and won one there as well. So you could just say Tom Brady. And there is such a thing as winner's fatigue. I think it's very real. People felt it in college with Alabama winning all the time. I think that's why they expanded the college football to the playoff and then to more teams is to saturate Alabama down a bit. But, I'm going to be on the side of full boycott of the Super Bowl. I have no interest in this game. If it was Buffalo, Philly, I'm in. If it was KC, Washington, I'm probably in because I like Washington and I like their story for the season. I wouldn't be so stoked about it. I'm tired of the KC thing. I'm tired of every time they win in the playoffs, there's always controversy around calls. Given they rise and they play better in these situations, especially when they have home field advantage. Nice to get some help during the year to get there too. And they've got some good players, but I'll be honest with you, what I've seen from the season, that KC has a top defense, but their offense, I just don't think they're that good. I don't. Now, given they had the higher point total, so I can't argue that. But there's so much shadiness. I know the NFL darlings usually get help from the officials, but, it's so bad. It's so bad. I have no interest in this. I hope Kelsey retires after this game because when he retires, there's no more Taylor Swift, and you won't see KC in the Super Bowl when Kelsey retires. That's my
it's been. I looked into a little of the numbers from the regular season on the Chiefs, and man, it kind of blew me away how ridiculous it was. The Chiefs. They averaged only 22 points a game scoring, and they gave up 19 a game. So that was only a +3 differential, yet they were able to go 15-2. Now, The Bills, on the other hand, scored over 30 points a game and gave up 22 a game. So they were at +8. And it just ties into, I mean, if you're only averaging 3 more points than your opponent and yet you're winning 15 out of 17 games, that's just insane. Now, I know last week they got blown out by the Broncos because they weren't playing anybody and they lost 38-0. So that kind of skews it slightly, but still plays into how many close games did the Chiefs
just take
win
week 18 out of the equation. Take week 18 out, including the Bills, and then run it. It's the same.
Right.
Your numbers will be pretty much the same.
Very similar. And the whole point I'm getting at is, you know, I mentioned the Niners and the Cowboys back in the day. When those guys were winning their regular season games, dude, the Niners were beating teams like the Falcons 38-3. They
were dominant.
Montana to Rice all game long. You know, you didn't have these close calls determining games all the time. Yes, they had a few close games during the season, absolutely. But the Niners were going 13-3, 14-2, and they were dominating half of those games. They were legitimately one of the top 3 or 4 teams every year, and they were in it. The Chiefs this year are really a 500 team.
And part of the 90s as well. They had the instant replay during those 2 in particular dynasties, so they could go back and look at stuff. And they did it way more than they do now. So
yes, yeah. I think with the whole instant replay thing on the 4th down that Allen did or didn't get, I mean, you can argue it one way or the other. I mean, who's to say that the Bills would have even gotten another 1st down and scored on that drive? They had the momentum going, no doubt. But I think the Bills actually blew it by not trying to get the previous play looked at, because to me it looked like Kincaid fell right on the 40-yard line, and that one should have been measured or looked at a little more closely. But I don't know, the Bills kind of ran up to the line real quick to try and
why did the official go with the back judge, the guy who couldn't even see the ball? Why does he go with his spot instead of the guy who had, now I'm not saying he saw the ball, but he had a much better angle to see it because Josh Allen wasn't in front of the ball from his view. And he was walking in front of the 4. It's
yeah.
And then
I know what you mean.
How about the catch that looked intercepted, but then was caught? The ball hit the ground before you could say either player had full possession.
Yeah,
should have been an incomplete pass that led to a touchdown 2 plays later. It just, as much as you can say, as bad as the Bills might have looked compared to the Chiefs, man, the Chiefs were helped along to get their score.
Yeah, I think it's just frustrating for us all because we know how good and talented and exciting the Bills and the Ravens, for that matter, both were. And both of those teams at different points in the year looked like literally the best team in the league. Like the Ravens looked like, I mean, they could blow out anybody. And they just happened to run into the Bills in the semifinals, right, of the AFC. And so that's where it's frustrating for me because, again, I go back to you want to see the best teams in the Super Bowl. And I think that this year in the AFC, the Bills and the Ravens were really the 2 best teams. The Chiefs just happened to pull out victories in the end. And so that's where it's frustrating to see it over and over and over again. I mean, yes, there's a lot of close calls, but man, like
every one of them goes to the red and yellow. Every one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. The close, like look at the Eagles game. The Eagles left no doubt, right? There was no doubt.
Yeah,
the Commanders had their chances.
Yeah.
The Commanders had their chances. It was 34-23. They were driving to try and cut it to
a fumble changed it. That was it. That was the whole game for them.
Yeah, that fumble on that possession, that was the game. And the Eagles took advantage of that. They scored a touchdown right away off of that turnover. And boom, it was all downhill from there in the 4th quarter. Well, and the Eagles left no doubt.
The reason that fumble was pivotal was because clearly the Washington defense was not going to be stopping that run game. Not at all. Saquon did what he wanted when he wanted to. So did Jalen Hurts, for that matter. So once that fumble came and they scored and went up by as much as they did, what was it at that point? 13, 14 points at that point? That was it. That was it. And they ended up just continuing to pour it on. That said, it was a wonderful season for Washington. Kingsbury staying in Washington for another year. I think Washington and Philly are going to be battling it out again for the division. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, when we take these games into consideration with our dynasty leagues, and dynasty values is really what we're talking about. We've got 8 months now here before we actually set our lineups again. So we've got nothing but this to talk about is value, right? And
value,
finding different ways to accumulate value or value stability or insulated value for our rosters, right? Because there's certain players who definitely have more fragile value, and then players who have more stable value. And I think what happened with Jaden Daniels is he completely cemented his value with this performance in the offseason. Like everybody knew, okay, he's a really good young quarterback, right? And you could value him up with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson now and Jalen Hurts. But what he did there was cemented what his position is as a top 3 or 4 quarterback in Dynasty. And so that's one main thing that I got from this.
2 playoff games he won. 2 playoff games. He should be hands down rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year.
I mean, Bo Nix had a great season and everything, but
until 2-1 versus 0-1 in the postseason. That's a big deal because he also knocked off the number 1 team as well, beating Detroit. That's in Detroit. So either which way, you're right. And we do have to assess the value. And some of these guys, even though I'm not going to be watching the Super Bowl, I can still keep up with what's actually happening. So assessing the value through the playoffs, it's kind of like once the regular season ended and our season ended, I wanted to do some deals before more values got inflated with the playoffs. Because it just had a feeling on some targets I was interested in. And, of course, their value went up even more. So, now you got to deal with that part.
So that brings up you're saying you wanted to get deals done in that. Do you find, and I know you have Jaden Daniels in a few leagues, and you may or may not feel like trading him in those leagues, but it's almost harder now to trade Jaden Daniels than it was 3 weeks ago, because 3 or 4 weeks ago, his value wasn't as stabilized. So it was a little more, if you owned him, you weren't entirely sure you had Josh Allen. But now you're like, I got a guy here.
Well, the big part is Kingsbury coming back next year. He's not going to have a new offensive coordinator. And they're probably going to get him more firepower in the offseason, whether it be through the draft or free agency. They will get him more firepower. I think that's going to go
it's not the greatest of wide receiver classes, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I can't see them not taking a receiver somewhere between rounds like 3 and 5. Somewhere in there, they're going to grab somebody because, I mean, yes, Scary Terry was awesome this year, but when you're talking Diami Brown and Zacchaeus and those guys, yes, they stepped up their games for sure, but I don't think that those are the guys that they're going to want to be counting on for a long time with Jaden Daniels. They're going to want to try and get another dude. Plus, McLaurin is 30 years old. So, I mean, you want to try and get another young guy to develop with Jaden Daniels. That's got
might not even be in the plans for 2025. It's just, I could see them going after someone like a T. Higgins, right, on free agency. That would be something that makes a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely.
I don't think they'll go make a big trade for someone like Ayuk or a Debo. I feel like one of those guys is definitely moving on from San Francisco next year. Probably Debo, if I had to guess. But I don't see them going after something like that. But like a T. Higgins makes sense because he's still young. Yes, he comes with a big red flag with all his injuries, but he's still young and uber talented and finds ways to produce alongside Jamar Chase.
Right, and he would be a great fit with Terry McLaurin there. I mean, McLaurin is just an older version of Jamar Chase, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not. He hasn't put up those
dynamic,
uber numbers
role
that Chase has, but he's definitely Chase light in what he was able to do this year. I mean, I wasn't expecting a top 10 season out of him.
Let's say ultralight. Let's say Chase ultralight.
Yes. But he's definitely made himself a big name in the market, dynasty-wise. Like, do you want to trade for him? Do you pay a late first for McLaurin right now, or do you not? Do you stay away?
What did I trade
fall off next year?
And that was mid-season.
Yeah, mid-season, I felt like I could confidently believe that McLaurin was for real. And so, yeah, I went after, I think I gave you a second and Braylon Allen. And I still think that's a pretty fair deal.
I couldn't remember which deal it was that I got Braylon in the second. If it was Terry, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it's still a pretty
mid to late first value anyway. So,
yeah.
But you also got half a season of his production as well. So you're paying that. You don't know what's going to happen at this point. Yeah. So it's a good argument for where you actually value him in a draft pick compensation.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, like I put him out now because I am pretty well stacked at wide receiver in that league. So he's one of the guys that I wouldn't mind getting rid of with his age. So, but nobody's biting on him. I'm probably stuck.
Not right yet. Not right yet.
No. I mean, I probably have to wait till August.
I might try to get him back at some point before the season starts, depending on how my draft and other deals go. I might be in that position to say, hey, let's make a run this year.
Right.
So if I come knocking for Terry, I'm coming knocking for the playoffs too. So you'll know that. That's where I feel like his value is someone who's knows they're contending and needs some extra points. But I would say I would be more comfortable getting him closer to the start of the season, or at least post draft. I would feel a little bit better. Post July 1st, I'd feel a little better. I'd feel better and better the further or closer to the season I got to acquire him.
Yeah. And I think it just, in that league in particular, it speaks to the knowledge of the league. Like, I'm going to be in better shape trying to sell one of my younger wide receivers. That's going to be something most of the teams in that league would be way more interested in than somebody like Terry McLaurin, especially at this point. If
everyone's looking at youth and picks.
If we're in September or October, then and McLaurin's playing as well as he did this year, then I'd probably have more people knocking down the door for him. But so he's just somebody that I'm going to have to kind of park on my team for now, and we'll see where it goes from there. And I think that just is how the dynasty offseason rolls. I mean, we're coming up now on the off week between the championship games and the Super Bowl. But of course, for us dynasty nerds here, we've got the East-West Shrine Bowl as well as the Senior Bowl this week. And so some of the big names that have made name for themselves at the Senior Bowl, we've got Jimmy Horn Jr. out of Colorado, who was sort of under the radar of Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders. He followed Dion over to Colorado, transferred from South Florida 2 years ago. And back there, he was known as kind of a kick returner specialist. And then this past year at Colorado, I don't know if you knew this, but he put up 1,500 yards. So he definitely was, yes, and I see it by your reaction. And I didn't know it either, because I did, and I watched some Colorado games, right? But this is a guy who's a smaller receiver, but can play. He fits the mold of what NFL teams are looking for. He's basically, I don't know, a younger Zacchaeus, so to speak, or, just that type of player who can fit the role of a slot receiver. And so he's been basically unguardable, they've said, at the Senior Bowl so far. Some other guys who've done well are a couple of Miami players who helped pump up Cam Ward this year. One guy I've loved, and that's Xavier Restrepo, the wide receiver. To me, when you watch him, he's like a Wes Welker clone, that Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type receiver. So he was somebody that Cam Ward really, as a new transfer to Miami for one season, he really, you could tell, gained the trust quickly from Cam Ward. And so Restrepo is somebody like that who, a couple of receivers last year who pumped their value up from the Senior Bowl were Roman Wilson from Michigan, and then especially Ladd McConkey. And so if Restrepo could continue this on through, I don't know if he's going to go to the combine or have a pro day, but if he can continue this momentum, you could see him going in the second round of the NFL draft and have a team fall in love with him because, dude, you can tell the guy is just a gamer. He's a lunch pail type guy. He loves football, gym rat, that type of player. I see him potentially having a long career in the NFL, that kind of player. If you go over to the East-West Shrine game, there's let me look quick.
Some guys have actually cooled themselves off already.
I know Deion's kid has gotten smoked, they said blatantly. Shiloh Sanders, he has not had a good time so far.
No, neither is Jackson Dart, from everything I can gather, which is crazy because he was climbing up boards or ranking boards pre-combine as finally in third, fourth quarterback.
Yes.
And now, I don't be bumping the brakes. So he's going to need to pick some things up himself. So
now another quarterback, though, that it has looked good at the Senior Bowl is Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. And Gabriel's an interesting guy. He's a guy who transferred a couple times, started at Central Florida, then went to Oklahoma, and then lit it up in his final year at Oregon in that offense there. He threw a pass that they registered at over 74 miles an hour. Now, to put that in perspective, and this is where I question it, but to put that in perspective, at the combine, the fastest balls thrown were at 62 miles an hour by Josh Allen and Joe Milton last year. So for a dude to throw at 74 miles an hour is just insane. And
that's like this guy throws 100 and this guy throws 115. It's a big difference. It's a big difference.
It's like Aroldis Chapman type speed where all of a sudden this guy, remember when Chapman first came into the league from Cuba and he was throwing at 5 miles an hour faster than anybody else had ever, like he was on the gun on the TV, you could see it was 104 miles an hour. It was insane. And but Dylan Gabriel isn't a quarterback who's got the long ball. Okay, he's more of a precise spread offense type passer, and I could see him, even though he's going to have like third, fourth round draft capital, probably he is a team leader, and he's, he knows three different.
Let me ask you this: is he better than Spencer Rattler?
I like him more than I liked Spencer, and I liked Spencer Rattler. But I think that the leadership ability is obvious there if you watched any of Oregon's games. And so I think he'd be a great fit in a team like the Raiders. I could see Pete Carroll grabbing somebody like him in the third or fourth round and rinse and repeat with Russell Wilson there, because that's where Russell Wilson got drafted. And it's just I just have a feeling about it. That's all. And they don't
get out of my head.
The Raiders.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So get out of my head. Look, I watched I watched pieces of the Oregon-Ohio State playoff game. Okay. And even though Ohio State was just, beating them up, there's nothing Oregon could do to stop them. And there was nothing Oregon could do to really move the ball a whole lot. But what I liked about Gabriel, what I saw was he was completely composed the whole time. He never looked down. He never really got upset. He just kept going back and trying to make something work, moving things around. I mean, you could just see the wheels turning for him. It wasn't a shock. He wasn't seeing ghosts. He wasn't down. He wasn't upset. He was trying to figure things out, and I like that about him. He kept his composure well, and the fact that he's seen so many different offensive schemes. He's played for different coaches. He's been all over the country. He's well traveled. So he's a guy that if he has a solid combine, I think the Oakland pick is great, because Pete Carroll, or whatever you want to say, that dude probably should have stock in Wrigley's, but it's he still relates to the college kids. He did so much coaching in college. I think he still relates to that, and he can find something that works. And it's not like Vegas is devoid of talent. So, and the fact that you can pick him up third, fourth round, depending on how things go, maybe even later, they can get other talent pieces in there also to help support him as well. So,
yeah, I think Gabriel, for us, dynasty-wise, he's going to be a great, dart throw in the third or fourth round, wherever he goes, because he's not going to be a first-round quarterback, but, he goes in the second, third, fourth round. There's a dart throw that you can put on somebody who, depending on the team, he's going to be competing for the starting job. Like
and the
you said,
Russell
Vegas
Wilson thing is good comparison too. I like that. Yeah, this could be Pete Carroll. Oh man, if that happens, that would be something. Y'all heard it here, right out of the Birdman's mouth.
Yeah, I laughed the first time I saw the possibility of Carroll going to Vegas. But now the more I've been thinking about it, the more it makes sense, really. They needed a culture change there, and Pete Carroll does that. If anything, at least, he brings in some kind of stability and some kind of direction, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what the Raiders needed in that division with the other three playoff teams in there. You got Hall of Fame coaches that they're going against. Now you put Pete Carroll into there. That makes the AFC West just a really, really strong division, I think, going forward. So, all right, we've talked a little bit about the guys at the Senior Bowl and East West Shrine game. Now let's get into our mock draft. Let's bring it up here on the screen for you all out there. We're going to be doing, we're going to keep it pretty standard as far as the format goes, dynasty wise. We're going to do a 12-team Superflex little tight end premium. And what we're going to do is one of us will pick first, then the other will pick second and third, then the other will pick fourth and fifth. So we'll do whoever gets the first pick, the rest of the picks will what's that?
Invite me to this thing, and I can still pick. So that way you don't have to do all that.
Well, or I can pause the draft and I can just make the selection as you.
Or you can just invite me.
All right, I'll try inviting you here, Matt. 1 second. Let me get on here.
Okay. Well, I say that so that I can go through the players as I want and see what
Okay. Do you have sleep? Well, let me see. Where do you want me to send it to?
You can just DM me, right?
All right.
On Sleeper?
Let me do that.
Probably should have told you that before we got into this, but yeah,
it's all good. We can do it really quick.
Very active whenever I draft, even when I mock. I'm constantly moving around and looking at things, and I'm just a weirdo, dude. It's okay. There you go. It doesn't matter. To heck with it. It's fine. We'll be fine.
Okay. It's not. Oh, that's why it's on the laptop. I can't DM on the laptop. I got to do it on my phone.
Well, that's just the limitations of technology.
Oh, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh well.
Okay. Unless, do you want me to send it to your phone? I can do it right now.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Let's just do it the way you had talked about it. We're going to do that. It'll be great.
So, again, it's a 12-team for all of you out there following. It's a 12-team Superflex tight end premium, and we're going to start with the one. Do you want the first pick, or you want me to take it?
Well, I mean,
what's up?
We're going to do 2, right? We're doing 2. So go ahead. You take the first 2 picks.
Well, I'll just do the first pick. Then you get picks 2 and 3, and then I'll take 4 and 5 and go back and forth that way.
Okay.
All right. Let's go here. Okay. So I don't want to take Tet McMillan. I'm going to take Genty, so I don't make things crazy here. And then
you got to change the screen so we can see it. Yeah, I think Genty's good consensus. It doesn't matter really your format, whether it's super flex or 1 quarterback or 2 quarterback, or even if you have an IDP league. I think Genty, I mean, it's so weird, but it's almost like in comparison to Bijan Robinson. I'm not saying he's the same running back, but as far as the draft is concerned, whereas you and I see receivers at higher value, I can't even argue with Genty going number 1. Because honestly, if he would have been on any other if he was in Georgia, if he was at Bama or a much bigger program, so to speak, than Boise State, he'd have been walking home with the Heisman.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, his numbers were sick. It was crazy. I mean, I went into watching some film on Caleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton, hoping that I could see a way where you could possibly squint and see people wanting to take either of them over Genty. And no, it's just there. It's like when LaDainian Tomlinson was taken, he was coming out of TCU, right? And TCU was even a little bit less of a program back then than they are now. And, Tomlinson, he was just head and shoulders above everybody else in that class. And so that's where I see Genty at. Tomlinson got taken at the 4th overall pick, I believe. So we'll see how high Genty goes in the real thing. But all right, you're on the clock, Matt. What are you thinking you want to do here with the 2nd and 3rd picks?
Okay, so assuming I'm not in desperate need of any position in particular, right? I'm just taking my best available here. I would go with Tet right out the gates at 2. I wouldn't even hesitate here. I know like the little receiver's been kind of king the last few years as far as the drafting and the expectations. And so he kind of goes against that. What is he, like 6'5"?
Yeah. He's a monster.
But if you look at his route running, he's so crisp for his size. He's got great hip motion for a guy his size. And I know he doesn't get tons of separation, but just go look at his contested catches. He welcomes it. So at the very least, you got yourself a red zone monster right out the gates.
Right here,
there's the player
comp. Like Mike Evans when he's out there. It's hard not to see Mike Evans in his game with Tet McMillan. And so what I think I see with Tet is a very safe floor, at least. Go ahead with your next selection.
Okay, so my next selection, I would go with Emeka Egbuka here.
Okay.
Over Luther Burden, over Travis Hunter. This is just call it a feeling thing. And again, I haven't gotten into my deep tape here. I think he's very self-aware of his abilities and his inabilities. And I think that's a very good strength for him. Plus, he's gotten to play alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. He's had good coach. He's been around other top receivers, and I think you can see that in his game. I like him a lot. So I would, without a ton of homework on it, I'm comfortable with McMillan and Egbuka here at 2 and 3.
Now that is very interesting to me because I really like Egbuka's game. I think he's a plug and play type receiver. I think he will get taken in the first round, near the back end of the first round. In fact, one of the mocks I did, he went to your Houston Texans, where that would be interesting because, of course, CJ Stroud and him played together at Ohio State. And so I think he'd be a great fit for the Texans with the Tank Dell injury, and then have him alongside Nico Collins. The guy is just a crisp route runner. He knows what he's doing. He has great body control. He's NFL ready for sure. So it's a little higher than I thought for sure, but with this limited wide receiver class, don't hate it. Don't hate it at all.
Well, the other thing too is it's a weak quarterback class. And so even if I assume Superflex are 2 quarterbacks, I'm not using top picks on this quarterback class. Some people will, and that's fine. That's totally fine. I will not. I will not, in this draft scenario, waste a pick on a quarterback in the top 5.
That will make this interesting. It's going to be a cat and mouse game here at the quarterback position for us. All right. So with you taking the 2 wide receivers, I am going to now we brought this up before the show, and that's with the scoring settings at in your league. Do you have IDP points or not? And this is something that I think you all should bring up out there to your commissioner, and bring it up now, because it definitely plays into the value of Travis Hunter. And the reason that I think you're able to go about most leagues, I mean, all of my leagues, I really don't want to be changing scoring settings, right? In the middle of a dynasty league. Like, that should all be set beforehand, before the startup, right? Not 3-4 years down the road. However, as dynasty players, as fantasy football players, we've never had a guy coming into the league that's looking to play. Well, if it was up to him, he'd be playing 100% of the plays, both on offense and defense, right? So the fact is we're not really going to know, no matter who drafts him, we're not going to even know until week 1 what this guy, Travis Hunter, is actually going to play. But I am going to leave it up to you, though, because I'm not going to take Travis Hunter. I'm going to take the 2 running backs that I have on top of my board right after Genty, and that would be Omarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson. So let me throw them up on the board. Both of them? Yep, back to back. That's who I would say I would go with. So, and the reason being is, when I look at draft classes, one of the most important things I want to know is where the strengths are in the draft classes. Last year, we had the strengths were at quarterback and wide receiver, and you saw across the board, the top 4 picks were Caleb, Marv, Neighbors, and Jaden Daniels. However you want to order them, it's no big deal for this point. The fact is that those were the strengths, and you saw that on down through the remainder of the first round last year. This year's class is different. This year's class's strength is running back. I don't want to be taking dart throws on wide receivers when you get to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, when you've got an abundance of talent at the running back position. So even if you're already loaded at running back on your current roster, that doesn't mean you don't take the value where it's there. You take the best players and then figure it out later. Mm-hmm. After we draft in May, you still got 3 months before you set your lineup. There's going to be somebody out there that needs a running back, right? And then it's just up to you whether you want to trade them the rookie or an established veteran. And so that's how I play. I like to take from the strength in the class. That doesn't mean I'm not going to take value if it falls at the weaker positions, but I try to stick to the strength in the class. Otherwise you fall into the hole that was Jonathan Brooks last year.
Right. Yep. Or Trey Benson for that matter.
Or Blake
a whole lot. You're right. So, all right. I guess I'm on the clock. Hey, not to look. And also I want to say this too. I like the strengths commentary there, because this This is almost a complete flip-flop from last year. We do have some good receivers in this draft. I don't want to play that down. It's not the strength of last year's, but there are some receivers in this draft that are really good. So let's
absolutely
not that at all. But the strength, you're absolutely right, is running back.
Come on.
And to be honest, like when I look at the top running backs of this class, I'm actually pretty kind of reminds me of last year's wide receiver class as far as
absolutely. Yes, I agree. Running backs just go on and on for days.
Yep. So I guess it shouldn't be overly surprising that you took two of them away because I wanted to take Caleb Johnson at like 6 or 7. That's okay. So at this point, like, see, I take the argument regardless of the settings. I don't know how Hunter will be used at this point. Now, I will say based on where he gets drafted, you'll have a better idea, but you still won't know until we get closer to like redraft draft season. So with that in mind, I would take Luther Burden here. If he's available at 6, I would definitely take him here. I don't think there's a lot to argue with that.
Love Luther Burden.
Yeah.
I love Luther Burden, yes.
So, and then here, I don't really play much that's not super flex or 2 quarterbacks. So this is where I would fire off a quarterback. And this might even be a little bit early, but I kind of want to beat you to him. So little gamesmanship in the pick. I would take Cam Ward right here because he's the one I see with the most upside in year 1 because of his mobility. I just think he's the better prospect over Shedeur Sanders. And I know that gets argued. They 1 and 2 between the two. But just like last year, I don't think it's close between the top 2 quarterbacks. Last year, I thought Jaden Daniels was hands down a much better quarterback. And this year, I think Cam Ward is a much better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders. So,
yeah, I think it's pretty close between the two. Now situation's gonna matter. You know, the type of franchise that they get drafted to, that all plays into it with the quarterbacks. And I agree with you. That's where I kind of leaned towards Jaden Daniels as well last year over Caleb Williams. I just didn't love the stability with the Bears organization. Now they got Ben Johnson that may provide some stability, but that's remained to be seen. And we all know Jaden Daniels obviously outperformed him this rookie season. And so I don't think either of us were shocked at all by the way it turned out. And yeah, it could be similar with Cam Ward. I mean, if he goes 1-on-1, he's going to the Titans. And it's not exactly the greatest situation. But,
well,
you know, where does that leave Shedeur Sanders to go? Cleveland? The Giants? I mean, you don't have a whole lot of stability there either.
No, you're right. But let's not forget there's trades on draft day. People can move around. Picks can move around as well. So those teams might make deals for players and move the pick off somewhere else. That being said, you brought up organization, the strength of the organization. I think that's a lot. Like Washington's ownership's much more stable now. Look at their coaching hires that they made, right? And
yes,
that's another piece that made Jaden Daniels more attractive. Honestly, you look at the roster, the Chicago roster from a weapon standpoint. I mean, they had DJ Moore, they had Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, they brought in DeAndre Swift. I mean, they had skill players, but then you look at Washington, they brought in Eckler, they brought in Zach Ertz. They got Terry McLaurin, but like, what the hell was there?
right.
It's not necessarily about the roster around them, but the organization is everything because he had a better offensive line. He had a play caller that knows how to use his skill set. Chicago did not offer that to Caleb Williams. Not that I feel sorry for him in any way, shape, or form, but that has a lot to do, especially as it applies to quarterbacks. I mean, look at these franchises that just can't seem to get out of their way. They never pick on a quarterback because they don't know how to actually protect them and develop them correctly. So that's their anyway.
Right.
Organization has
And,
more quarterbacks.
I just wanted to mention Jaden Daniels' work ethic because I think that is really ultimately what paid off for him. I don't know if you were able to see, I saw a lengthy tweet, but it was on Jaden Daniels' AI that he did back. He started it back at LSU, where he would watch virtually 600 plays of his opponents, 600 different defensive sets based on 60 offensive plays that his team runs. So he would see 10 different defensive formations for one of their plays, and then he would run it at 1.75 speed. And so then the actual game would slow down for him. And you translate to that to the NFL. I think that's why you were able to see Jaden Daniels play with so much composure this season and not look like the NFL game was too fast for him.
Yeah. And his simulator work was second to none. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Like he even told teams that this was a demand that he had in his contract before getting drafted, that he be allotted a certain amount of time to devote to this type of training. And so I think with his success in this AI world that we're in, I think this is going to trickle down.
Yep.
I've mentioned in one of my pods, my kid's 11 years old, right? So he's a few years from high school right now, but I wouldn't be shocked by the time he's in high school that they have some sort of this technology down at his level already. Yeah. And it's just the way the world's changing, and it obviously has helped Jaden Daniels. And because of his success, I think the young quarterbacks would be stupid not to try it, not to try it to see if it could help improve their game. Now I'm going to go with the next quarterback because I'm taking top talent here at picks 8 and 9. And if Shedeur Sanders, and then I'm going to go with his teammate, Travis Hunter, if they're both available at 8 and 9, I'd be very happy to take both of these guys. Now, again, the Travis Hunter pick, keep in mind your league settings. Like I said, I would bring it up now to the rest of your league so that so it's very transparent. Just be transparent with your league. Again, we have no idea really what Travis Hunter's percentage of plays on offense and defense is going to be until truly week 1 of the season, because you're going to get all sorts of hype, training camp hype on Travis Hunter. Oh, he played this amount of plays on offense today and blah, blah, blah. He smoked this cornerback at wide receiver. For me, watching him play, he reminds me of somebody who could fill the role of like a Jameson Williams on a team's offense for now. It all depends what team he goes to. Like, he could be the most talented wide receiver. If, say, the Raiders take him, they're going to try and expect him to be their wide receiver 1, and that might be a little too much for the guy. But if he goes to, say, the Jaguars, well, then he's got Brian Thomas there. He's got Christian Kirk there. He doesn't have that pressure of having to be the wide receiver 1, and that would be an awesome fit for the Jaguars, as well as a few other teams they're picking early where they've already got another established wide receiver. And so you don't put all that pressure on the kid.
Fair argument. The only thing we'll see what happens. And again, this is so dang early. Our season's not even over yet. And again, we will have the combine and more tape to lean on. And then we'll have the draft to see where they actually end up. And I think that, again, with some of these players, this is actually fun bit too, because I think a lot with this draft, with some of the guys that we have question marks on, situation is going to change a lot of those question marks. I don't think we'll have near as many when we get to our actual rookie drafts. That being said, with the 10th overall, I would go with Trayvon Henderson. That'll be the first running back I took or selected here. It's a good pick here. Now, this is where I'll say, again, the settings come into play, right? We play a lot of tight end, actually all tight end premium in Dynasty. So the tight ends carry a little bit more weight. And I think over the last few years, we've seen some success from tight end or rookie tight ends early. Not so much this past season. as we did in previous years. But that being said, I would take Tyler Warren here with the 11th spot, hoping that I'm kind of getting a little bit of a discount on my rate, landing this year's Brock Bowers.
Love the comp there with Brock Bowers. If you watched any of Tyler Warren this year at Penn State, you saw how they moved him around the offense like a chess piece. He had over 200 yards rushing on the season. He's just a very, very versatile player. And I love the skill set. He's going to be a great asset for any offense to add into the mix there. A lot of mocks have him going to the Colts, which I might be a little scared of, counting on Anthony Richardson, hyper targeting him. But again, he's going to be a great asset. And, people got scared of Brock Bowers going to the Raiders last year, and you see what he did last year. And I think the NFL's just become more willing to let these rookie tight ends come in and play more snaps right out of the gate. And that's leading to more, rookie tight end production. The last couple of seasons, we've seen back-to-back tight end ones out of rookies. Right. Sam Laporta and then Brock Bowers, back-to-back years. So, Tyler Warren is an awesome pick here. I would have no problem jumping on him right there.
And that's the key that makes him comp to Brock Bowers, is the fact that he can move all over the formation. So he doesn't necessarily have to be in line. You don't necessarily have to depend on him to pick up certain blocking assignments early. You can use him predominantly in routes and roles that he's comfortable with that makes him a higher volume target in the tight end position, or with the tight end designation, we'll say.
Yes. All right. Now I forgot to, there we go. I'm going to make it linear. Forgot to update that. There we go. Now it's a linear draft board. Okay. So I'm going to go with the national championship game hero, Quinshon Judkins here. For my first pick.
Good one.
And I think Judkins got lost a little in the whole transfer to Ohio State, and then having Trevion Henderson there. And then you also had the great performances this year from Caleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton, as well as Genty, that kind of pushed Judkins down a little bit. Now there's still some analysts out there who have Judkins as their number 2 running back, which I have no problem with putting him up there. I think that
5 and you're doing well. Obviously, we're higher on a couple of guys than we would be the rest of them, but any one of these top 5 guys that you land, you're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
I would totally be, especially I got a couple of dynasty teams that are running back needy. I would like to have any one of these guys join that roster,
Yeah, I think obviously we're going to expect Genty to be the top guy of this class, but any of these next 4 in Hampton, Caleb, Henderson, or Judkins, any of those 4 I think could finish any which way. It's going to depend on the situation, injuries, etc. But they all are very talented, and so they could get.
Is going to separate at the combine. You watch. One of them will.
Some way they're going to, and they all have different little skill sets. Henderson's a good receiver, great blocker as well. So, team need and fit is all going to matter and play into it, and how much opportunity they get right away as rookies. I think that this 12, though, that we took in the first round right now, this is pretty much the top 12 players. I think that we establish it. You could, now I said Egbuka was maybe taken a little high, but you could argue, this or that. Again, if he went to the Texans, I would love that fit for him. And we didn't use any draft board here saying this player went there or that player went here. And we probably could do that in a future mock where we actually use like a Mel Kiper's mock draft to have the situation at least there for us. But I think that we got the 12 most talented guys right here in the first round. Now, heading into the second round, I am going to jump on one of my guys, and he's actually on top of the quarterback board. And that would be Jalen Milroe. Now, Milroe, I am picking based on talent and the running ability right there. I see Jalen Hurts when I see Jalen Milroe. Now, his passing game isn't quite there, but neither was Jalen Hurts when he was coming into the league, right? Jalen Hurts transferred from Alabama when after Tua took over for him in the national championship. He knew his time was up there in Alabama. So he transferred over to Oklahoma and worked on his passing game a little bit more there. And then he got drafted by the Eagles, which was a great situation. And so I think that's what Jalen Milroe is going to need, is the right situation. Probably looking at a second-round pick right now, at least for Milroe, but he's got the talent and the rushing ability, and we know how much the NFL is moving towards rushing quarterbacks. And so I think Milroe's got the right kind of skill set here to adapt to the NFL game well. He's just got to work on his passing game a little bit. But, if he gets to a good franchise, now Hurts obviously walked into an awesome situation where he had talent everywhere around him, but not immediately. He had wide receiver at least, right?
Right.
Right.
But he had an organization that wanted him and built around him. So
yes.
That was, again, organizationally, it worked.
It means everything at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Just look at Sam Darnold.
His last two stops, he's been with great organizations, and all of a sudden, look at what he can do.
Yep.
So, yep.
All right, Matt, it's on you for 2.
All right. So next one I think this one's pretty easy. Well, for me, it's easy. I'll take Isaiah Bond out of Texas. The wide receiver there. Yeah. I guess you could talk about Trey Harris here. I just like Isaiah Bond. I think, I don't know. I could argue what Trey Harris he played at Ole Miss. So
Ole Miss.
Yeah. So both their quarterbacks are kind of similar in my view from fantasy perspective where they get drafted. So the receivers on the other side of the ball are in the same tier as well. For me, I just like Isaiah Bond a little bit more. And also coming out of Sarkisian's offense with the receivers that he developed around, as opposed to what Trey Harris had. And then after that, let me see here. This one's a little bit tougher for me. Man. I guess I'd go Ollie Gordon out of OSU. Not the OSU, but the other one.
Sniped him on me. That's who I was eyeing up.
Do what?
That's who I was eyeing up, is Ollie Gordon.
Okay. Yeah. No real rhyme or reason here. I just like the running back class is strong, and I'm taking the next best available in my early shot here. So I'd go with.
Yeah, there was a time last off season where Ollie was ranked as the number 1 running back heading into.
I'd say top 2 or 3 there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he won the Doak Walker Award last season as the top running back in the 2023 college season. And OSU, Oklahoma State, just Gundy couldn't get it going this year. It was a rough season for the Cowboys. O-line was terrible. They were playing from behind in the second half just about every week. And so that led to a very disappointing season from Gordon stats-wise. But the talent's still there. I had him mocked to the Cleveland Browns at the beginning of the 3rd round in my last mock, and I think that'd be a perfect fit for him. He's not a huge back, but he's big. That's a big thing about the backs in this class. You don't have many scat backs. These dudes are all NFL ready. They are all 5'10" to 6 foot, 210 to 220. They're ready to go. Yeah. These guys will come into the league, and I'm telling you, if you have a fringe running back, I'm talking like your Tyron Tracy's, the Raiders situation with a bunch of crap there in the backfield. These guys are going to come in and take over that backfield. I mean, Tyron Tracy, if the Giants choose to take a running back in the top 3 rounds, you could easily see Tracy falling back into the third down role then.
Which is still productive, especially with his skill set, which he showed this year, because he's still a threat to run or receive. But that being said, yeah, you're absolutely right. But look, you're getting the 2023 Doak Walker Award winner in the second round of a fantasy rookie draft. I think you're pretty comfortable with that. So, yeah, and I'm much happier with this running back class in that these guys they lean closer to the 220 side, which is where you want your running backs to be coming into the league. Yeah.
All right. So I am looking. Oh, this is tough. So I'm going to take the guy you mentioned, Trey Harris, first. Mm-hmm. Now, Trey Harris is somebody who was lighting it up at the beginning of last season and then got injured. And so, but he was really putting up big numbers at Ole Miss in September with Jackson Dart there at Ole Miss. And so I like what I saw from Trey Harris. He's one of these receivers, as you mentioned, with Isaiah Bond. He's in the second tier of wide receivers if we want to clump McMillan, Egbuka, Burden, and Hunter all into the first tier of wide receivers. This is definitely, we're getting in the second tier.
There's Tet. Yeah, tier 1. Yes. And we go tier 2 the rest of that first round. You see there. And then these guys, for me, these guys would hit a third tier. So I think just because McMillan is, he's head and shoulder. He's Malik Neighbors without anybody else around him in this draft, right?
Hey, I love McMillan too. I do have him as the number 1 wide receiver for sure. It's more so what I'm getting at is those top 4 guys I see as contributors right out of the gate. For sure, they're going to come in and be a wide receiver 1 or 2 on their team. This next tier here are guys who are going to have to fight to get into the wide receiver 1 or 2 role on their respective teams.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm getting at, I guess. So now I'm torn between the 2 strengths in this draft at running back and tight end. And man, I'm just going to go with the tight end I like because I don't want you to take him. And that's Harold Fannin. Bowling Green.
Bowling Green, yes.
Now, this guy he looks just like David Njoku out there. Not much of a blocker, but we don't get points for blocking in fantasy. And dude that puts up 1,500 yards at the tight end position, I do not care where you played at. And then to do it against Ohio State and Texas A&M, when he went up against those guys, he still put up big numbers. So I think he can play. I think whoever drafts him knows what they're getting. They're getting, like I said, David Njoku, Isaiah Likely, that kind of style tight end. And so I think it's a guy that, middle of the second round, if you're looking for a tight end, it's a great dart throw.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's a great call there. I know there's a lot of thought that Loveland's going to be taken by the Chargers, and there's a natural fit there, and there's upside because it's Herbert, and Greg Roman likes his tight ends. And that being said, Fannin's, in my opinion, the better pass catcher. So for fantasy purposes, I'm much more engaged to the Fannin side as opposed to the upside of situation with Loveland. Although, I might feel differently come draft time. So my next pick is going to be Jackson Dart at the quarterback spot here. It's kind of a dart throw in the middle of the second, but I mean, I think I could pick worse here. I think how many quarterbacks that weren't starting week 1 ended up starting at some point this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even 5th round draft picks like Spencer Rattler got his shot, right? So there's a shot for these guys to get on the field early and see what they do. That being said, my goodness, my next pick, it's tough. Shit. Oh no. That's tough. Oh, what the heck? I'll just take me a little running back. Give me Devin Neal. I'll take Devin Neal here. I mean, it's kind of a. I'm just taking.
Yeah, we're into the second tier of running backs here, and I
don't know a ton on Devin Neal, but I know he's 5'11". He's 215, and at this point of the season, I'm gonna take on a build. How about that?
I don't think that Devin Neal is going to blow anybody away with excitement, but I kind of think, I don't know, David Montgomery when I see Devin Neal here. It's going to depend what team he goes to and what kind of
Ingram, for that matter. I think he's the part of a 1-2 punch type of a deal, but
absolutely. And it's just this second tier of running backs. If we clump all of the first round running backs into the top end, right, where they're all we're pretty confident in their talent. This running back 6 through 20 here, there's going to be a lot of movement around with these guys. These are the running backs that are going to get picked anywhere from rounds 2 through 4 in the NFL draft. And so, yeah, you're going to have team needs, situation, team scheme, all of that's going to play into these guys, and they're going to fluctuate around drastically. I think there's going to be a lot of movement with these running backs in this range.
Yeah, and let's be clear, if a running back's getting 2nd and 3rd round draft capital, that's really good draft capital for a running back. The times of seeing that 1st round running back, that's going to be rare, right? You didn't see one last year, and yes, I know Bijan was one the year prior, and you're probably going to see Genty go in the 1st round this year, but it's 2nd, 3rd, 4th round draft capital for a running back is good. It's not the same as it is for other positions. So,
yeah, it's going to be really interesting. We know Genty's going to go in the 1st, very likely, but then the running backs 2 through 5, Hampton, Caleb, Henderson, and Judkins, they could go. Any of those guys could get taken in the 1st, but at least by the end of the 2nd round, I think all of those guys will be taken. These next guys, though, Ollie Gordon's a guy, could go in the 2nd, but could go in the 4th. I don't know right now. And so that all remains to be seen. We're just throwing them out there now so you guys are well aware of them and kind of get a little more comfortable with the names, and so that you're feeling more confident when you're selecting them in your rookie drafts in May. That said, I am going to stick with the running back position, and this is maybe a little bit of a reach according to Sleeper, but I am going to go with heart and work ethic here and take Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, if you want a gamer, there is nobody that plays harder than Cam Scatterbo. And I haven't seen a guy that looks like Mike Allstott until I saw this guy.
Nice.
So you want to have a football player, take Cam Scatterbo. All right. Just watch 30 seconds of his highlight reel, and man, you'll fall in love immediately. And after that, I'm going to go with a wide receiver who I've seen sneak into the first round in some mocks. So he's definitely moving up the boards, and you're pretty familiar with him, I'm sure. Out of Texas, I'm going with Matthew Golden.
You SOB, dude.
Nah, he had a great playoff run, and he's been moving up the board. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's, knocking down the doors of the back end of the first round in our rookie drafts come May, depending on where he gets taken in the NFL draft.
Yeah, you got me on that one. All right. So with that in mind, I'd go Tez Johnson. I really wanted to go Golden there. But that's okay. I'll take Tez. And then, oh, Christ. See, this is where I start looking at the board and see. Yeah, that's, well, I don't know, man. This is tough. Did we assume Superflex here or no?
Yeah, it's Superflex. Yeah.
Okay. That makes things a little bit easier. I got a feeling. No, because I'll take Gabriel here, and then the reason I'm going to do that here is because I think he's better than Quinn Ewers, and I think Ewers would actually be drafted ahead of him in rookie drafts. I know you and I were chatting earlier. We said maybe you get him in the third round, but I think he's better. And again, going with the work ethic and his composure set, man, if he ends up in Vegas like we talked about, I don't see him not winning out a starting job there. I just don't see. I could see him just starting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same if Jackson Dart went there, I could see him start. It's just
absolutely, yeah.
I could see him as a starter, and I would much rather have him than a Quinn Ewers leading my team, or at least on my roster.
All right, so it's back to me here. Are we going to go 3 rounds, or are we just going to stop after 2?
No, I can't do 3.
Okay, yeah, we'll stop after 2. So to finish things out here, I love the running backs in Dylan Sampson, RJ Harvey out of UCF, and DJ Giddens out of K-State. I love those guys, but I'm going to go with the guy who I think will just end up falling somewhere in the second round of most of our drafts. I'm going to go tight end Colson Loveland. Yeah. I think that this is I heard I was watching Player Profiler yesterday, Theo on the show, and his guest was a draft specialist, and he comped him to Mark Andrews, and that's the kind of game that I see Colson Loveland. And if he does happen to go to the Chargers there and get drafted by the guy who recruited him out of high school at Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh, Loveland would fit right into that role there in the Greg Roman offense. And so we could see production right out of the gate from Colson Loveland. Definitely NFL caliber, ready to rock and roll. Could go in the first or second round of the NFL draft. So I think I'm pretty solid with the Colson Loveland pick. Any of these dudes that we took in the second round here, honestly, you could flip it all the way around this second round here in a month now after the combine. So
yeah, that's the thing. At this point, this is all just speculation, all speculation, right? And yeah. Then, I mean, you and I both admitted we make 2 picks based on, like, one's based off work ethic, the other's based off physical build. It's going with some of that we've known's worked in the past in this area, right? So, but we'll know more. We will absolutely know more.
Yeah, I think the best benefit of doing these mocks at this point is at least to see where the strengths and weaknesses are in the class, and we've obviously made that with a running back, and then with 3 tight ends going by the end of the second round, that shows the strength of the tight end class. And as we go forward through this offseason, you'll see that there's even more talent at the tight end position for guys to get taken in the 3rd and 4th rounds of our rookie drafts come May. And so, but we also saw that being the format, that quarterback is still important no matter how you want to cut it, right? Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, and Gabriel, all 3 of those guys, you can throw Quinn Ewers into that mix. All 4 of those guys have the opportunity, or at least they're going to have the opportunity wherever they go to play right away. They're, whether they go to Vegas and they're getting the opportunity to start right out the gate, or they go to a team that has an established starter, they're going to be a very good backup that I think the team can trust right away to be the guy to come in and produce for you. And, I've won fantasy championships with, I started Spencer Rattler in the championship of one league this year. Last year I started the dude in, who was Herbert's backup?
Easton Stick.
Easton Stick I started 2 years ago in a championship. So, I mean,
or you could just take the business side of it, right? The quarterbacks I traded this year. Now, given they weren't rookies, but they're older and they were backups, right?
Right.
Well, I traded Sam Darnold this year. He ended up starting, but he was a backup when I attained him. Let's see, Joe Flacco, Mac Jones. So, I mean, really, I know I traded I did trade Bryce Young before he started performing well, but that was part of a bigger deal. That I got Justin Jefferson out of the deal, which I did. But either which way, even if a quarterback's not awesome, but he gets an opportunity to start, they then immediately have value. There's going to be people that like to have the handcuff to their quarterback, and you can make a deal with them. So you can also profit on the business side, not just in W's on your roster, but on the business side and get more picks, another player, whatever it may be. But yeah, having a quarterback that is second string in a super flex league is not a bad thing to take up roster space with, because he does hold value, a lot more value than, say, backup receivers and backup running backs and backup tight ends.
Yeah, it's playing the Moneyball game. I did my Moneyball series, and yes, give me all the backup quarterbacks on the roster that you can squeeze in there. Way more valuable trade-wise, especially, because you can accumulate a bunch of 3rd and 4th rounders by having those backup quarterbacks that get the opportunity on your teams, and that's how you insulate value on your dynasty rosters. And that's kind of what we're really trying to do here in the off season. Just get some good value added to your roster, finding different ways to do that. You don't have to, the point is, you don't have to make a splash trade in the off season to help you win come point scoring season. You don't have to go out and buy Justin Jefferson right now. You don't have to go out and pay up the ass for Saquon Barkley right now because he's going nuts. Just try and make smart decisions. Don't worry about, oh no, I don't want to do this because I'm making that team just unstoppable now. Worry about your roster. There's a lot of things that can happen this offseason yet. We got 8 months to go. Hopefully out there, you guys gained something from this and got a better perspective heading into this weekend's Senior Bowl and Senior Bowl and East West Shrine Bowl, and then the Combine coming up in February. Any other thoughts, Matt, just on the draft?
I was just going to back you up on the don't just make a splash trade to make a splash trade. It's not the time to do that. You and I talked through a deal that was offered to me, and it's with IDPs involved, but like Patrick Queen, Justin Jefferson, and Marvin Mims were thrown into a deal that I would acquire. But what I had to give up was so great. And it doesn't make sense. Like they wanted JSN, Marvin Harrison, a first rounder, I think it would be the 107, and then also the 201.
Yeah.
And
It's just
that just
not
doesn't
enough.
work for me, man. That does not work for me.
And don't get me wrong.
I really like Marvin Mims.
There's nothing wrong with trading a Jefferson. Nothing wrong with that. But if I'm trading somebody at that value, I want to get two really good assets. I don't want to get one asset and then, a bunch of junk. So, just be smart about it at this time of year. Work with your league mates. They're trying to help their team out too. So find what they're actually looking for, right? I mean, obviously everybody would love to add Justin Jefferson to their lineup, but who's looking for their backup quarterback? Who's looking for, a Jaylen Warren type? Who's looking for that right now? Who has too many draft picks? Some guys, they're rebuilding. Well, they can't make all of their 12 picks that they've accumulated for this 25 draft, right? They really are only going to be able to make 7 or 8 of them. So which of their picks in the 3rd or 4th rounds are they willing to get rid of? Because maybe you're a contender. You were a contender this last year and you've already traded away your 1st or 2nd or both of those. And so you just want to have a few dart throws in the 3rd or 4th round, which aren't going to be bad picks. This is a deep class. Just because it's weaker at wide receiver and quarterback doesn't mean that there's not value there in the 3rd and 4th rounds of this year's draft.
Yeah.
So, all right, Matt, love having you in the show. Always appreciate the insight. And yes, I stand with you. I hate the Chiefs and just despise it. And it's going to take every ounce of me to not have to watch this Super Bowl, but I got to do it. I've only missed one Super Bowl since the 84 season with Montana Marino. I've only missed one Super Bowl, and I actually was able to catch the tail end of it, but it was probably the ugliest Super Bowl. I don't know if I can think of an uglier one, but it was the Rams Patriots Super Bowl from a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was ugly.
And I didn't miss anything.
All right. So look, I'll tell you this, and I'm kind of a split fanship. More right, I like the Saints and I like the Texans.
Yeah.
But that Super Bowl, I even watched that Super Bowl after the Saints got completely robbed of their chance. I still
that's right.
Because I wanted to watch Tom Brady play. That's it. I didn't know how many times I was going to get to see Tom play in the Super Bowl again. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to play it. So I was still willing to watch that. That's how much I disapprove of what I see right now. I will not watch it. It's unwatchable to me. So, yep. I don't think I've missed a Super Bowl since I started watching them either. And I even caught the Cowboys-Steelers Super Bowl from my hospital bed. I was in the hospital and I still caught the Super Bowl. And now I'm willingly not going to watch it. So shame on you, NFL, for getting on the Swift train.
Yeah, it's just for all of us true football fans, it's really disappointing to see all of the way pop culture has just eked its way into the game. And it's kind of it's hurt a little bit for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if the ratings are a little down this year. That's because, as I said at the beginning of the top of the show, 99% of the country was against the Eagles. 99% of the country was against the Chiefs going into these championship games. So I mean, yeah, I'm watching it because it's the Super Bowl, but man, I am just watching it to see the Chiefs lose, not to see the Eagles win, because I
hope the Eagles do win. I really do. I hope Jalen Hurts gets his Super Bowl because he's a good kid. I think it's comical that they went from a Super Bowl appearance to all of a sudden their coach is on the hot seat because they had a down year. Come on. So I think that's cool. I like players on the Eagles team. There's some players I like on the Chiefs, but don't care to watch it. But I do hope the Eagles win.
I just want to know, and you're going to have to come and tell us what you actually decided to do instead of watching the Super Bowl. If it's planning a family day and you go out to the movies or something, or what it is, I want to hear what it is because, you know, I don't know. Watching the Super Bowl with my kid is just a thing that we're gonna do, and even my wife loves the halftime entertainment. So, you know, whatever. Hey.
I will probably play disc golf that day. And then I don't know, maybe we'll watch Sonic 3 or something.
Hey, there you go. Hey, we haven't watched Zootopia in a while, so maybe we'll throw that on.
Let me ask you, what's the date again on the Super Bowl? Because I actually might be on the road, so
is it the 9th?
Oh,
I think it's February 9th.
My kids will be on break, so be doing something else. Anyway.
Yeah, it's bringing it up to make sure here. Yeah, February 9th. February 9th. So plan your vacation on that day. All right. So thanks again for joining us today, Matt. Thank you out there for watching. Just remember to never stop working.